As you come in, go ahead and share the thing, guys. Share it up, share it up, share it up.
Make this carnival a special one at Spice Isle Jewelry. Get up to 40% off our collection of silver and gold jewelry with purchases above $115. Visit our 2 locations on Grenville Street, St. George's and Spiceland Mall, Grand Anse, and see our fine selection of traditional West Indian bangles, necklaces, earrings, rings, and our unique handmade pieces. Step into Spice Isle Jewelry and shop in air-conditioned comfort with friendly, helpful, and courteous staff. We also pay the most for scrap gold. Our repair service is second to none. Treat yourself or someone special with something special from Spice Isle Jewelry. Serving you since 1986. Call us on telephone number 440-3155 or 440-6648. Sale ends August 31st.
Yes, yes, yes. Welcome to Tuesday on the Ride. Yes, yes, yes. Welcome, 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 and welcome. Good evening, Lydia. Good evening to you, Bilal. Hey, Dylan, how you doing? Patricia. Junior Fonge Art. What kind of name is that? Junior Fonge Art. Dexter Coleman, how you doing? Big up yourself. Guys, today we got a very interesting conversation. Let's have this conversation because, well, even before the passing of the Queen, there have always been talks about why Caribbean islands, or not Caribbean islands, but countries in the Commonwealth. Few countries, because there are a few countries that already went republic. As we just saw, Barbados just a few months ago went republic. But why some other islands, namely Grenada, Jamaica, other Caribbean islands, are still under the monarchy? A lot of people have been speaking about it, but ever since the passing of the Queen, the voices grew even louder, with more people talking, vocalizing, asking, why do we have the Queen as head of state? Why do we, as an independent country, as they say we are independent, some of the islands in the Commonwealth have attained independence 40, 50, Grenada 45 years ago. Why is it that we then need a king or queen as head of state? So we're going to learn all about this because we got an expert in the field, got a lawyer expert in the field, who's going to be speaking to us and sharing some light on the information. But of course, guys, of course, and you know, when you're talking about important things like these, a lot of people don't like to watch, right? You know, when you're talking about history stuff, we just fall asleep in class. I used to, but then I understood the importance of staying asleep in history, right? History class. So a lot of people might shun away from this discussion today. A lot of people might dig their head in the sand from this discussion today. But it is important. It is important, vital, essential, all these great words. A lot of rain in Montreal. It is important, guys. So as you come in, go ahead and share up the thing and let us talk. Let us talk. Let us talk. Very important, guys. Yes, yes, yes. So everybody share. Let's see, we're wasting no time because we have a very lengthy discussion with the lawyer, giving us some great information. Very important. Hey, Wendy, how you doing? So everybody share? Let me know when everybody share. Let me know when everybody share. Let me know when everybody share. Let me share as well. Hey, Pearl, how you doing? Good evening to you, Miriam. Everybody share? Guys, everybody share? Hold on. Share as well. Because I don't want nobody to fall asleep in this history class, eh? And then all you're going to say, all you ain't get the information. Hunter Bacchanal, big up yourself. How you doing, my brother? Big up yourself, my brother. All right, let me go and share. Put it on a few pages. Because after this, right? After this, I don't want to hear nobody calling and asking the question, why is it that the government officials all have to swear allegiance? Why they all have to swear allegiance to the Queen, her heirs, and her successors? You will learn today. Wendy, big up yourself. All right. Very interesting topic, guys. I'm excited. But all you're making me that excited here because I want everybody to share. All you need to do better than that. Everybody need to share. All you need to do better than that. I need more shares than that. Before we start the discussion, we need more shares than this. Ali Spice Boca, big up yourself. No falling asleep in this history class today. Just imagine. All right. Let's go right ahead, guys. So as I said, it's important that we have this type of discussion, right? Right after the swearing in of the new government, and we had Parliament swearing in, we heard all the elected officials who was duly elected by the people of the state. They was duly elected, whether it be senators or whether it be MPs. They were all swearing allegiance to the Queen, her heirs, and her successors. As of last Thursday, the Queen, Elizabeth II, passed away. Right after that, we saw an installation of a new king, right? And the conversation, as I said earlier, started to even get louder. There have been more talk and people asking the question as to why? Why do we need a king? Can we just get rid of the king? Now, even that question was even asked to Muta Baruka, who is a Jamaican poet, activist. Muta Baruka was on an interview on MSNBC. These were his feelings on the passing of the Queen. Listen.
Introduce yourself.
Well, my name is Muta Baruka.
Muta Baruka, and I'm curious, first of all, how do you feel about the Queen's death?
I don't have no feelings about it, you know.
No feelings at all?
No.
Even though this is a Commonwealth nation and she was the head of state?
She's the head of state of the Commonwealth nation. I am not part of the Commonwealth. I don't recognize myself as part of the Commonwealth nation, even though I'm in a Commonwealth nation. See, I'm a Rastafarian. The only king I recognize is Emperor Haile Selassie I.
So let's explain a little bit about that. You are a descendant of the families that were enslaved and brought from ships. Do you know where your family descendants came from?
Very difficult to say, but given what we know about Jamaica, we would say from the West Coast, which is like Ghana, Nigeria. Most of us is from Ghana. Because we know about the Accra Compound, and we know about the Coromantee. These are some African nations that came out and came across the ship.
So when you look at the moment that we're in, after 70 years, no apology from the Queen for the enslavement,
Yes.
and now a new king, what is your expectation, first of all, in terms of an apology? Are you expecting one?
Look here, the Queen has been there for 70 years, and she has been all over the world, one of the most traveled monarch of England. And there's so much atrocity that was happening in India, in Kenya, in Southern Africa, and in the Caribbean. And she has not even recognized that her family was responsible for what is taking place, especially now what is taking place in Jamaica, because all they did was to rebrand slavery and call it colonialism. So it's the same thing.
So now we go forward as opposed to looking back.
Yes.
What is your expectation?
Yeah, all right. My expectation is that we will have to continue the struggle to make whosoever is on the throne now recognize that there's something that is need to be done right now. And that is an apology and reparation.
Okay. So thank you very much.
Yeah.
You know, calculating reparations, Yasmin, is very complicated. Because
All right. So that was Muta Baruka, very, very vocal on his stance, on his position on the death of the Queen and the what is called the installment of the new king and what it means for people in Jamaica. But the conversation went further than that, guys. The conversation is so deep right now that people in Bahamas, people in St. Lucia, St. Vincent are now asking themselves, even people in my hometown, Grenada, asking themselves this question. So just as of about a couple minutes ago, I had this long interview with Ruggles Ferguson. Now, Ruggles Ferguson is a lawyer in Grenada, and we had this very important conversation. And the conversation, I want you guys to listen to it very closely because it will put all of this into historical context. It would make people have a better understanding as to why we still have to pledge allegiance to the Queen and why it's not going to be an easy task to remove that. So check out the interview with Ruggles Ferguson right now. Guys, back in 1660, yeah, we're going way back down in 1660, the Royal Shipping Company, which now many people could associate that with the royal, to the monarch that we know now in England. They were linked to that, the shipment of slaves from Africa into the Caribbean. Now, these slaves worked on the sugar plantation, which at the time was like liquid gold, right? Liquid gold. These slaves work on the plantation, but didn't reap any benefit, financial benefit from their labor. Now, fast forward to 1883, after the abolition of slavery in the Caribbean, and the slavery was, of course, abolished and done with, the slave owners was then given over $20 million. Now, a lot of people would contest and say that because of the labor that was done, the hard work by our ancestors, they basically contributed in making some of the big superpowers great and big, or as super as they are. So back after the abolition of slavery in 1838, guys, and these monies was paid, there was no payments or reparation, or as you may call it, as you may know about it now, to the slave workers. Instead, as I said, the owners of the slave was given $20 million. Now, you might think $20 million is not a lot of money. Back in those times, that basically, if you look at it now in real context, that's probably valued at over trillions of dollars. So that's what happened. So to put this whole question of the monarchy, because we just saw the death of the Queen, the installment of a new king, and Caribbean islands are now asking themselves, why do we need that? Why do we need a head of state which is not local in their own jurisdiction, which in their country? And as soon as most of those islands already became independent, the next question is, now that we're independent, do we still need a head of state which is in England? So there's a lot to put into perspective, and I'm happy to have a good friend of mine who will help us understand this from a historical point of view, is of course lawyer Mr. Ruggles Ferguson. Mr. Ferguson, welcome to this chat right here, and I'm happy that you took some time to help us understand some of these issues. So let me ask you this first question. As a Caribbean island, Grenada, being a colony former colony of the UK, became independent in 1974. Why is it then important for Grenada, being an independent country, or Jamaica, or whichever country, need a head of state which is the Queen? Why do we need a head of state if we're independent?
Right. And again, very important question, Godfrey. Godfrey Jr. Yeah. Sorry, Junior. It's a very important question, and it's probably the right time to have discussions on these issues, because for many, the these are topics that don't really, history, for example, is not necessarily a topic that grips people.
Right.
And as the saying goes, you have to understand your history to understand the present and to plan for the future. Now, just to put things in a bit of historical context, we had slavery. Back 400 years ago, there was slavery, and under the concept of slavery, slaves were not treated as human beings or considered human beings. They were commodities to be exploited, just like other commodities. You can buy and sell them. So just like you buy a car, you buy a machine, you buy a fridge, you buy a stove, you can buy a slave. Slaves had no rights. And it's important that we understand these things in a very practical way. Basically, they had no rights because they were considered property. Property to be bought and sold. And just fast forward a bit now, you had, of course, the abolition of slavery back in 1834. You had the Slavery Abolition Act in 1833, the abolition of slavery, quote unquote, 1834. Then you had a system of apprenticeship up to 1838. And so slaves were reportedly freed because there was a law, the Slavery Abolition Act, a law put in place to free slaves. And of course, slaves were from Africa. And these, you had slaves from India, but in our parts, we focus a lot on the African slaves. So they were brought from Africa, brought into the West Indies and other parts, and basically treated as property.
Yes.
So you go to the market, you have a sale, you see Junior looking muscular there, and say, well, you bid and you pay a fee. And basically, he is your property and he has to follow your instructions. There were no laws per se, as they are now, protecting the rights of the individuals. So fast forward again, and through wars, between the British and the French, different islands became the property of the colonizers. So we happened to be under British rule in the latter part of the in the 20th century, when we had, for example, moved from being a full colony ruled by the United Kingdom. Then you had what you call, we moved up to the stage of associated statehood.
Yes.
And then independence. So Grenada and several other islands became an associated state of Britain in 1967. You had associated statehood. And then 7 years, we had complete independence. So it's like a transition. But the common thread that runs through all of this is, first and foremost, individuals were owned as property to be bought and sold. Secondly, our respective countries, as we know them now, were under the rule of the United Kingdom and other colonizers. So we are owned. The country was the property of the United Kingdom. And then eventually you had associated statehood, and where one is responsible for internal and external affairs. Britain was still responsible for external affairs, defense, security. So slowly there was, what we call democracy. But we, in 1951, for example, that's the first time you had the universal adult suffrage, where you can actually vote
Yeah.
for people to represent you. So these steps in history are important to understand and internalize broadly if one is to understand the present, and very importantly, if one is to shape the future. So
Yes.
we have moved from individual ownership as owning people, owning country, and then no, and all of these, by the way, were brought about by conquest. It's not any peaceful transition. Men. So, for example, you have the whole story about the Caribs and Caribs leap, the Siboneyes and all the original inhabitants of these parts. They had to run for their lives precisely because there were powers that were bigger and more fully armed than our own people, and they were therefore able to conquer. So in those days, it was the fittest that survived. And
Right.
it is in that context that one has to understand the monarchy. Now, all of this has been sold in a sense, in a way that, okay, we are the beneficiaries. You know, we are the beneficiaries. We get handouts that we ought to be thankful for over the years, because those who owned us gave us freedom and then gave us something to survive and to keep us up, right? I think that's the way people have been brought up to understand the events of history. What has happened with independence now came a constitution in 1974. So Grenada was an associated state in 1967, and we gained full independence in 1974. However, and what full independence is supposed to mean theoretically as compared with the other periods is that we have become at last a sovereign nation, recognized as a nation in its own right, that has total control over its internal and external affairs. So that's what independence meant.
Yes.
However, the monarchy was retained as part of the constitution that was handed over to us, and the monarchy was retained, and the monarchy under the constitution, section 57 of the constitution, remained the executive authority over Grenada. So Her Majesty, in fact, section 57 of the constitution says the executive authority, or words to the effect, over Grenada lies in Her Majesty, and Her Majesty is represented in Grenada by the Governor General. And
executive authority. I just want to hone in a little bit there on that word, executive authority. At face value, it sounds like if it has to do with financial commitments or financial authority. Just break it down for me. Executive authority.
No, well, executive authority in its literal sense, means that you have control over, right, the affairs of the states. For example, and I think it's probably good in times like these to make the little fine distinctions and sometimes the mistake people make. So you have, for example, our Governor General in terms of protocol, right? When you rank in officers of the state, the Governor General falls on top, the representative of Her Majesty. So the Governor General is the head of state. Next in line comes the Prime Minister, who is the head of government. So the Prime Minister ranks second in protocol, right? And then you go to others, President of the Senate, and these different ceremonial roles. But theoretically, and that's why when somebody says, referring to the prime minister, or you might say, well, head of state, the governor general is the head of state. The prime minister is the head of government. So ranking in protocol is still the governor general, because the governor general is the representative of Her Majesty. Right. And in our constitution, which is the supreme law of the land, section 57 of our constitution states expressly that the executive authority lies in Her Majesty. So we actually have it as part of our constitution. And maybe the most significant part of it, and which is just basically how our structure is, what we inherited. The most significant part of it is that after general elections, we had adult suffrage in 51, with people voting for the first time. Everybody voting, universal adults, men, women, etc. But after the election now, and you have to be sworn in. You have to be sworn in to make it complete and legal. You have to swear in, and as part of the swearing in, you pledge allegiance. And we just heard it after the last elections. You pledge allegiance to Her Majesty. Well, in that case, there was a queen.
Her
Majesty,
heirs and successors.
Her heirs and successors.
Yes.
Right? That's whom you pledge allegiance to, because that is part of what is ingrained in the Constitution. It's just the system that we have.
So the Constitution that we adopted, there are many things in the Constitution, and after going through some articles of the Constitution, we noticed that in order to change any article in the Constitution, there have to be a referendum, which have to be at least 67% of the electorate. Explain to me the process in further details of changing any, like if you wanted to change the Queen as the head of state and become a republic, what is the full process?
Okay, now we start off and conceptually here to understand it. The Constitution is the supreme law. However, there are what you call entrenched sections of the Constitution, and you have deeply entrenched sections, and you have sections that are not entrenched.
Right.
So, for example, there are sections that you can amend with a 2/3 majority in Parliament. For entrenched sections and deeply entrenched sections like fundamental rights and freedoms, you must get a 2/3 support of the people voting in a referendum. And to remove the Queen as head of state, that's part of the entrenched section of our Constitution. So we cannot do it without a referendum. And the process is this. Now, remember, just broadly speaking, there are three main arms of the state. We always speak about that, and I always make the point over and over. If people understand separation of powers, then they would understand the real fundamental base of the Constitution, and the details would be better understood. So, for example, you have the legislature that passes laws, and only the legislature passes laws.
Yes.
You have the executive, and the executive, though the Constitution says the executive authority lies in Her Majesty, but the executive authority really in practice lies in cabinet.
Right.
And the third arm, of course, is the judiciary or the court. Now, so passing of laws is solely in the domain of Parliament. Our Parliament consists of two houses. The lower house, or the House of Representatives, people elected in an elections, and then you have the upper house, or the Senate. And so how laws are passed? Simply this process. The government, who holds office of the day, will have their own legislative agenda. There's what you call an attorney general's chambers, and there's a drafting unit there. So for example, if you want a new law, let's say child is a child, which so many people relate to, right? That's part of the policy or the government's legislative agenda. It sends it to the AG's office, to the drafting unit, and they would give their policy, what they want to see reflected in the law.
Right.
The draft would be done, and that draft or bill, a bill, enters the law house and is debated there. It's debated and passed by simple majority, right? You don't need a special majority. So there happen to be 11 people in Parliament that day. 6-5 does it. One vote. It goes next to the Senate, where it's debated and passed there. Simple majority. 2. After the Senate, it goes to the Governor General, the head of state, for what you call assent or approval. And assent means the Governor General signs off on the bill.
Right.
And a date is given. It signs off now as a law. Because once it's passed by Parliament, it becomes a law. It enters Parliament as a bill, goes to the lower house, then goes to the upper house, and once passed, it becomes a law. The Governor General signs off on it, assents, and then it is published in the government gazette. Those are the procedures for all laws.
Right.
And referendums or laws that change the constitution go through that process also. However, the difference, especially when it's an entrenched provision, where you're talking about the monarchy and moving the monarchy, it has to be by special majority. So the first example I gave, 6-5, a normal law passes on that basis. 6 on the government side, or six parliamentarians approve it, vote for it, 5 oppose it, that goes through because majority prevails.
Right.
However, if it's a law to change the constitution, then you have the same procedure, but different majorities now. When it's a change, an entrenched provision of the constitution, it cannot be by simple majority. It has now to be special majority.
Yeah.
So, for example, there are 15 members of the House. And if you have to introduce a bill into the law house, that bill has to be passed by at least 10 parliamentarians.
Right.
And that's 10 is 2/3 of 15.
Yes.
So if 10 in vote for it, in going forward.
So that is why it's important, and that's why it was important in passing any kind of referendum that the both parties come together.
Precisely. That's the point.
Right.
That's the point. When it's about changing fundamentals in your supreme law, there must be cooperation. It cannot be approached in a political partisan way, because you just never get, unless you have a government, and we have had that too, which controls all the seats in parliament. So you must have 2/3. Then it goes to the Senate. You can have a simple majority in the Senate. But after approval, before it goes to the Governor General, it has to go to referendum for the people to vote.
Yes.
And when the people voting in a referendum, you must get a 2/3 majority of those who vote.
Yes. Okay.
So if 10,000 people vote, you must get 2/3 will be about 6,700 people voting in favor, or else the bill fails. And that is what happened in constitutional reform in 2016 and 2018.
Yes.
Because there was no um, people did not vote. There was no 2/3 majority voting in favor in a referendum.
Right.
So
Let me ask you a
that's
question.
Grenada.
Right.
Yes.
I know we don't have a lot of time, so I want to just go briefly on these two other items. One, if then a country, say Grenada, were to move forward with moving towards becoming a republic, does the currency then change? Does Grenada then have to pull away from the EC currency and use its own currency, or print its own currency?
Well, not necessarily, because these things are really based on policy decisions. So, for example, in a republic would cut ties in a sense. It doesn't mean that you won't have a relationship with, but you will have a local head of state.
Right.
So, for example, in the region, the republics are Trinidad, Dominica, and Guyana. Trinidad has a president, Dominica has a president, but both presidents in Dominica and in Trinidad are what you call ceremonial presidents, just like the governor general. Right. They may have some
Barbados as
more
well.
power,
Barbados
right?
as well.
Well, right, and Barbados now, being the latest in their independence last year, became a republic, and that is ceremonial too, akin to governor general. The only republic where you have an executive president, in other words, the president is the chief, the first among equals,
right,
is Guyana.
Guyana, yeah.
Right, and if you know, it's the Cooperative Republic of Guyana. And so they have both a president and a prime minister. But the first among equals is the president. So it's the only country with an executive president in this part of the region. But again, the issue, for example, in Barbados, you see, Barbados constitution is different to ours. There are similarities, in fact, almost substantially the same. All these constitutions came from the same source, but there are some differences. So, for example, if you notice, to move from the monarchy to a republic state, there was no requirement for a referendum in Barbados.
Yes,
because their constitution provided for the majority, the 2/3 special majority, and you had opposition support and government support, and government controls most of the seats, the ruling party. So it was easy because they don't need a referendum, even to enter the CCJ. Right, of the 4 countries that have entered the CCJ and making full use of it, Barbados, Guyana, Belize, and Dominica, neither needed referenda. Right, so there was no referendum. You have the special majorities in parliament, but our constitution is structured in such a way and has these special provisions that if you have to move to do certain things, you need the support of the majority. And well, not just the majority, but a 2/3 majority. And that is a tall tree to climb. It's a tall tree to climb. And especially if you move in that direction and it gets entangled with partisan politics, then forget it. We go nowhere.
Right.
So you have this situation where there'll be debates about the king and queen and so, but the reality is that it is part of our constitution. The reality is that we'll be pledging allegiance to either a king or queen, because that's just our structure until it is changed, until you have constitutional change. As the saying goes, jump high, jump low, Once it remains part of the law, then that is how it works.
Right. Yeah, listen, Ruggles, thank you for putting this thing into historical perspective for us and give us a better understanding. Because as you said, jump high, jump low until the law is changed, until there is some kind of successful referendum, we'll be pledging allegiance to His or Her Majesty, the Queen or King of England. Ruggles,
Right,
thank
and
you
it's
so
the
much.
same thing. If I can just say, Junior, just take this point in. So it's the same about the CCJ. So
Yes.
the CCJ is in the Caribbean. It's a Caribbean court, but our people, as a final court, if you want to challenge a decision, you must go to the Privy Council in the United Kingdom. Just so you need a 2/3 majority to change that.
And that article, that referenda was also an article on the past referendum.
Precisely. It was. So that's why education, because a lot of times people don't, they take emotional approaches to these subject areas. For example, once upon a time, if there was a bet, and that's not too long ago, which would be the last country in the Caribbean to go republic, I am sure more than 90% would have voted Barbados. Barbados.
Yes.
Because Barbados was seen as Little England, conservative,
Yes.
and they wouldn't move the Queen. Everybody loves the Queen. But they have shot ahead of all of these other islands.
Yes. All right. So that was an interview that I had earlier with attorney Ruggles Ferguson. And we join now with Jamaican vlogger and activist, Ripe Mango, Kamala.
Hi.
Kamala, how are you?
I'm good. I'm great. How are you? Haven't spoken to you in a while, but I'm good.
It's been a while. Kamala, thank you so much for being so patient and joining us to give us some perspective of this conversation that's been happening throughout the Caribbean, more so after the death of the Queen. Tell us about how it is in Jamaica. What's happening in Jamaica? What are the conversation like post the death of Queen Elizabeth?
Jamaicans are really and truly exasperated. The majority of us, anyway. You still have a few Jamaicans who basically believe that, they should. They're coming from the era where the Queen is the Queen is the Queen is the Queen. But the majority of us we're not interested. I've heard a few vox pops.
Right.
And the people are like, this has no bearing on me. You see, almost everybody in Jamaica born comes to this Queen, and she's never affected anything here one way or the other. Right. And in the last couple of years, we had a visit last year or early this year. I can't remember exactly when it was, from Prince William and his wife.
Yes.
And they weren't well received. They weren't well received at all, and that is where it all started. This conversation came back because we were about to go into the 60th year. We just celebrated our 60th year of independence.
Yes.
And so the conversation started when they came here, and that's when the government took it up that, yes, we are going to sever ties with the monarchy, as the people there was a lot of public pressure. It's been growing over the years, because, it started, of course, with the Rastafarians.
Mm-hmm.
Jamaica has always been the hub of social consciousness, one of the hubs, not the only hub, but one of the hubs of social consciousness in the Caribbean, because of the presence of the Rastafarians, who always wanted to be repatriated to Africa. They always were very conscious of Black empowerment and anti-monarchy. You understand? Yeah. So that has more or less caught on here. You understand? The whole fever and the excitement of it. And most of the Jamaicans know, especially the millennials, they really have no care for the Queen. As a matter of fact, when the Prime Minister recently announced that we were to go in 12 days of mourning. He was basically ridiculed, you know, because everybody was wondering. First of all, they have so many memes because of what he said. Also, you know, Jamaicans were the king of the memes. And I mean, he's been getting it left, right, and center since he made that announcement, especially since subsequent to that, the British actually announced a 10-day mourning period. So he's been getting a lot of hammering. I mean, why do you want to mourn this woman for 12 days and the country where she born and raised in say 10 days? You understand?
Yeah.
So I mean, in Jamaica, we're over it really and truly. It's very interesting. Yeah, go ahead.
I know the consciousness of Jamaica, and I heard Muta Baruka speaking on it. I heard a number of other people speaking on it. But why it's taken Jamaica so long to come to that consciousness, to even move
All
towards
right. I
using the
just
head
listened
of
to
state?
your last the interview you just finished, and what I can't remember his name, but what he said is the same thing that exists here,
Yeah.
where it's entrenched. The monarchy is entrenched in our laws, and it has to go to referendum, and there has to be 2/3 majority in parliament. So the problem is we've had an issue with both sides agreeing. We have a two-party system, and
Right.
one side has always been pushing it, and the other side has always been opposing it. No, ironically, the side that has always been opposing it, because this we're talking about from in the 90s, we've been trying to get this thing done from from as far back as I can remember. And
Yes.
I think I kind of start getting politically conscious in the 90s, in the early 90s, when we had PJ Patterson as the prime minister. I remember he was a very strong proponent of cutting ties with the monarchy, and his then opponent, Edward Seaga, was dead set against it. You know, so the irony is now that Edward Seaga's party is in power, that's the JLP, being led by Andrew Holness. And I don't know if it was the blowback from when the prince and the princess were here, but he decided that, hey, he's going to support the severance of the ties. He's going to support the push for us to become a republic. You understand? But it's so, he's so, you can't even trust what him says sometimes, because he's all over the place, really, if you were to ask me, because he says this 1 minute, and then within a few months of him declaring that, we hear that he got awarded by the late queen, and she put him on her PC, which is the Privy Council, you know, they get this designation, the PC, which is it's like the Privy Council, but it's for leaders.
Right.
Anyway, and then you stop hearing about it, you know, and then recently we had a situation in Jamaica where our Minister of Foreign Affairs, Kamina Johnson-Smith, went up against Baroness Scotland of Dominica for the General Secretary of the Commonwealth. You know, when all the Caribbean islands were united to actually support the Baroness, Jamaica out of the blue decides to put up themselves and nominate the Foreign Affairs Minister, and she went in an election against her and lost, you know. But that whole bid was being pushed by the former Prime Minister of the UK, Boris Johnson, who openly campaigned for Kamina Johnson-Smith. So when we see things like that contradicting the stance that he supposedly took, we have to wonder if he's really serious, because he promised us that he would have started the process before our 60th anniversary, which just passed last month.
Right.
But the process, it done gone now, and the process don't start yet.
Because we know the political will or no will politically to pass this. But what about on the street? Do you think if it were to go into a referendum, the people of Jamaica would vote towards it? Because we had one in Grenada
Definitely.
recently, it didn't.
We are currently in the middle of a national poll, and one of our most famous pollsters, who is Don Anderson, just asked that very question. And over 80% of Jamaicans want to sever ties with the monarchy. So that's a overwhelming majority, you know. So if it were to go to referendum, most Jamaicans would want to sever ties with the monarchy because time, really and truly, time come. And I mean, as a lot of Jamaicans have been saying, rest in peace, but it's neither here nor there.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting after doing some research for this program, and we talk about how superpowers are superpowers and why superpowers are what they are, and why the rich are so rich. You know, we learned that the Royal Shipping Company, right, of 1660. So we're going way back down there. They established that the ship that took the slaves across into the Caribbean, they was essentially tied directly to the royal family, right? So
Yes.
they benefited. So they brought they brought these slaves into the Caribbean who worked basically for liquid gold, which is the sugar, and that sugar was then sent back to the colonizers' country. They became wealthy, rich. The slaves themselves got absolutely nothing. They got absolutely nothing. And at the abolition of slavery, finalized in 1838, when it was expected that the slave workers would actually benefit, instead they paid the slave owners, and the slaves got absolutely nothing. So there was no repatriation. There is no
reparations.
No reparation. Sorry.
But it goes further than that, you know. They actually stopped paying the slave owners. The descendants of the slave owners got their final payment in 2015.
Yeah.
And a lot of Jamaicans, actually, during the Windrush generation, who are the descendants of slaves, enslaved and colonized by these people, went to UK during the Windrush generation, paid taxes. And those taxes contributed to the payments of the descendants of their slave masters.
Yes.
That is how perverse the entire system is. And when we call, because when the monarchy came here earlier this year, there were protests here. They visited 3 countries, Belize, Jamaica, and the Bahamas. And we had protests here. And the prince didn't apologize. We called for an apology. We wanted an apology because we know said them not even going to talk to about reparations. You understand?
But if they apologize,
they said it what the prince's exact words, and that's the current who is now the Prince of Wales, that's Prince William. His exact words were slavery was an unfortunate experience.
Yes,
that was what he said. There was
the thing about it is, Kamala, if they make an apology, is like they accepting guilt.
They accept, exactly, and that is it. That's why everything they say about it is carefully worded, because once they apologize, they accept responsibility, and they don't want to accept responsibility. But the fact is that they are still living off the legacy of slavery. You understand? They're still living off the legacy of our ancestors, even beyond slavery, who went there on those banana boats and worked in horrible conditions under racism for a little bit of money. And then guess what? Jamaicans need a visa to go to the UK. So if we need a visa to go to the UK, why do we still have to our head of state? Why is our head of state the queen or the king of a country that we need a visa to go to?
True. And
you know, our politicians have failed us miserably here, because the minute that the UK decided to impose visa restrictions on a realm country, because Jamaica is a realm country, then we should have made immediate plans to cut them off. You know, but we keep hearing you have a lot of Jamaicans who still need to decolonize their brains, because it's like they believe that we can't live without being a realm country of the UK. You understand? And really and truly, they contribute absolutely nothing to us. You understand? They don't give us free money. Anything that we get from them is on loan. And even if they give us a grant or a gift, it comes with all sorts of conditions that have us jumping through hoops. I mean, I can't forget when Prime Minister Cameron came here and he wanted to send, when they were working out the agreement to send back prisoners here. They wanted to build a prison so that they could deport more people, more Jamaicans.
Yeah.
And every month there's at least one flight coming to Jamaica. With people, Jamaicans being deported from the UK.
Yeah.
And sometimes the things that they're being deported for, ridiculous. Traffic violations, some non-violent misdemeanors.
Yeah.
So it's like they are just dying to get rid of Jamaicans after they have done so much to us. So then why should we therefore have these people as our heads of state? Why are we still subjecting ourselves to this? It's almost like Stockholm syndrome.
Yeah. We got a caller on the line. Caller, are you hearing me? Hello? Hello? All right, let me, if we could get this caller. Caller, are you hearing me? All right. We're having problem connecting with our caller. Guys, we want to have you on this conversation right here. We're talking about the reason or your rationale why you think that the Queen should be removed as head of state. Let me see if I could go back to the phone line. Caller, you live. Are you hearing me? Hello? All right, let me try this caller a different way. Caller, are you hearing me?
Caller.
Hello?
Hello, you know who this is?
Okay, I'm on the show. You want to call back? All right, sorry. That was another call that was coming in.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yes. So yeah, guys, 718-701-5720 if you want to put your voice on the topic right here on the question of removing the Queen as head of state in your respective country. And and the reason why it's so difficult, because again, we were given a constitution, as Ruggles Ferguson said, basically handed over a constitution, and the constitution made it almost virtually impossible, very, very difficult, with 2/3 of the majority, very few things. Barbados, however, was able to somehow tweak their constitution way back. So in order to get these items, they don't necessarily have to go to
it doesn't have to go to a referendum. They
which,
learned from our mistake, because you have to remember that we were one of the first territories to gain independence. And I believe, if I remember, well, I wasn't alive, but if I remember my history correctly, we had a situation where we had to go to referendum to vote for what they used to call Federation, West Indies Federation.
Yeah.
From in the 60s, when we had Bustamante versus Norman Washington Manley, right?
Right.
So Barbados actually learned from our mistakes when they saw what we had to go through. So that's why when they were becoming independent, they didn't have that referendum requirement in their constitution that we have. So we have that. We need it's entrenched, so we need a 2/3 majority, as well as it needs to go to referendum. So, but as your previous interviewee stated, everybody is kind of shocked because the nickname for Barbados was Little England. We never really expected that Barbados would be the first to literally jump the gun. So, I'm very proud of Mia Motley. I think it was awesome that she saw an opportunity and she took it without apology. So when that happened, and that is where the conversation in Jamaica actually started, because we were like, hey, if Barbados can do this, why we can't do this? So I think the Prime Minister started feeling pressured right there. And then on top of that, now the Prince and his wife came here, and Jamaicans were not very receptive of them. As a matter of fact, if you check the British media after that, they basically stated, there was an article in The Guardian that stated that the royals were embarrassed when they came here. You know, actually in Belize, there were protests against them. They were supposed to visit a farm and people the people blocked them. They couldn't go. They had to change the schedule, change their itinerary, I should say. And aside, when they came here, there were protests in front of the British High Commission. You know, they were not well received. I mean, when you compare it to the other times, I remember the Queen coming here in 2002. That's the last time she came here. I remember Prince Harry coming here in about 2007, 2008, thereabouts. And the reception that the Queen and Prince Harry got was much, much more warm and welcoming compared to when Prince William came here last year. So you see that there's a shift in the perception and the mindset of Jamaican people and how we view the royal family. Because really and truly, I personally cannot understand why even the British people put up with this foolishness, much less we who have no connection to them. But when you listen to the British people talk, I guess royalty for them is an institution. I mean, I found it ludicrous that the British have a transfer tax, and now the Queen has passed, and her what you call it now, the inheritance is supposed to pass to the new king, and I guess her dogs went to one of our children, but there's supposed to be an inheritance tax. Right. And there is a clause in their constitution that states that in order to protect the wealth of the monarchy, the richest man in the country doesn't have to pay the tax.
Yeah.
Yeah, and these people they're fine with it. And I'm saying, this is ridiculous. But that's fine for them if they want to do it, but why are they imposing this on us? You understand? We are still very a lot of us, as we become more educated as Black people and more conscious, more socially conscious, more race conscious, a lot of us get angry when we find out exactly the kind of atrocities that our ancestors went through.
True.
And a lot of us are still bitter, right? We see a lot of effort being made to foist the Queen's transition on us in every single sphere of the media. No, death is natural. And while we are not happy that, well, I personally, I'm not happy that she died. The woman was 96 years old. It's not like when Princess Diana died, which was a tragic occurrence.
Right.
I mean, allow our soul. It's like media overkill. Everywhere you turn, they're just bombarding you with it. And this reminds us, this is a reminder to us of what they took from us. Because every time you see all of this pomp and pageantry, remember now that the monarchy to us, especially those of us who are conscious, socially conscious, is a constant reminder of not just racism and classism, but it's just a reminder of what our ancestors went through, because the monarchy is like a relic from colonialism and the slave trade, the transatlantic slave trade.
Yeah.
And people say every day, I see people saying that the Queen herself had nothing to do with it. It was her ancestors. No.
But they all benefited. The lineage.
Colonialism
persisted
right up into the 80s. Apartheid. So when was apartheid abolished in South Africa? In the 90s. A great driving force of apartheid was the British. The British are the ones who colonized South Africa. You understand? The war, the civil war in Nigeria against the Igbo people of Biafra, and the Nigerians, the civil war, the Nigerians from the north. A lot of the Nigerian government was funded by the British to annihilate the Biafrans. And people, that was recent history. That was in the 70s. It's really not long ago, and it was the same Queen. She's been the Queen since 1952, right through Jim Crow. And she could have used her position of authority, being the head of the state of so many countries, to speak out against institutionalized racism. You understand? Now, at that time, during her entire reign, up until perhaps 2000, Black people who were colonized by her country endured a lot, and she did nothing about it. So why is it that we should be mourning her again for 12 days, for 10 days even? I don't understand. I don't understand. You
Yeah.
understand? And what I don't appreciate is the fact that when Black people who are socially conscious speak out about it, we are told to be quiet. I see no, they are doing their whole mourning thing, and you have people who are protesting. Naturally, people protest these things all the time, and they're being arrested for speaking out against the Queen, and that makes no sense. In 2022, when free speech is a thing, you understand? And what I don't understand, and people might say I'm controversial when I say this, is how comes the Holocaust is taken so seriously, but the slave trade is dismissed? What we have gone through, there is nobody who took part in the Holocaust, or the descendants of Hitler or whoever who took part in the Holocaust, that are put on a pedestal. The Queen is on a pedestal, and she's the direct descendant of our enslavers.
Yeah. No, you're right. You're right. I think we need to have more conversation. And someone's saying that we need to have more conversation on the constitutional reform. And if people are educated, more so on a broader scale, I know Jamaica, you said there was probably 80% of the people who are ready and
Yeah, we are ready. We are ready.
with the referendum. In Grenada, it was not that. It became deeply politicized. And it's not going to change. We could sit here from morning till evening and night and talk about all of these atrocities that happened to us. But at the end of the day, the law as is in Grenada and in Jamaica and other Commonwealth countries is that we have to still pledge allegiance to the Queen, her heirs and her successors. We just had an election in Grenada where the Prime Minister and all elected
Yeah, I just
officials.
saw. As a matter of fact, your Prime Minister is going to be here in a few days.
Yes,
He's
yes.
to come to Jamaica
On
Thursday or
I believe.
Friday.
Yeah, on Thursday, I believe.
I
Yeah.
look forward to meeting him.
Deacon, yeah. He's a cool guy. Once you meet him. So unless there is full education, people understand, and the referendum does not become politicized, because that is the problem that we have.
Exactly.
If the referendum become politicized, it would never, nothing will change about it. It will continue the same way.
And that is the biggest problem that has occurred in Jamaica. It was politicized from day one. It becomes this political football, where you have one side that is for it, and just because they are for it, the other side automatically has to be against it. You know? But I think what happened to this Prime Minister is because he's a populist. He literally got backed in a corner. You know? Because he's a populist, and when he doesn't want to take an unpopular decision, so he decided, well, hey, if the people want it, then I'm just gonna do it. You understand? Yes. So that's how he. But the fact is, as I said, he's such a contradictory guy, because literally when Barbados did that, the Queen conferred some on a pre-PC, so he's now Andrew Holness PC, which is Privy Council or whatever. And she conferred that when Jamaicans started making noise, and then he just stopped speaking about it, because he just take a bad trip to England, get him a award, and him stop talk, right? And then the conversation started getting loud again when the royals were here. Him start talk about it again. You understand? And then him stop talk when him decide to send up him foreign affairs minister to run for some position. You know? So he's very populist. I know that. He said what he said, but that doesn't mean he's going to follow through with it.
Right.
So we just have to hope and wait and hope. But I know that the opposition was the party that was always pushing it, and they've always been committed to trying it. From the time of the Manleys until PJ Patterson, all of the prime ministers under the current opposition, PJ Patterson, Manley, PJ Patterson, Portia Simpson Miller, they have all been committed to moving away from the monarchy. So we just have to hope and pray that.
Well, as long as there is a political will between
Yes.
both parties and there is a will of the people, it will happen. And hopefully in the region of the Commonwealth, because I think even in Grenada, as I said, people are very passionate about it. Even more so now, they're paying more attention, so they're seeking more education, because this is not a sexy topic. This is not a topic that people would gravitate to listening a lot. But people are still paying attention now because the Queen just passed away and there is a new king and people are talking about it. So if you could use that opportunity now to start educating people about the process, don't politicize the system. Both parties come together, put a referendum out there, and see if we could change and move forward. If that is
Definitely.
government, yeah.
The I think half of the problem too is that people don't like the new king. It's very unfortunate to say, but it's just the truth. Most people from the Caribbean tolerated the Queen because, in terms of her personality, she was a nice little old lady. You know, she
Right.
never really do nothing to nobody, even though we didn't like what she stood for. She
Right.
had a very affable personality. I mean, she was kind of cool. She was in James Bond and she did some little cool things, and a lot of people just found her, you know, she was all right. But
Right.
a lot of people dislike Charles
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
everything he did and everything he stood for, and he was always scandal plagued
Yeah.
from his marriage to Diana to the other woman and whatever coming. I'm not going to even go into those details, but people, he was always very unpopular
Yeah.
as the Prince of Wales.
So it's a
So for him
popularity
to
thing
become
because
the king now, a lot of people are like, really? We have
Yeah.
to really put up with this? No, man, it's time to get rid of this thing now.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
understand? Because whereas the Queen's personality could have pulled it off, Charles don't have no personality.
Yeah. Yeah. You're right. You're right. I saw people saying, well, if it was Diana, then okay. Oh, I could live with
There
that.
you go. Because
So
she was the
it's about the
people's princess.
personality. It's more about the
And
personality at this point.
And that's the thing with it. Diana was loved by so many people that
Yeah.
Diana actually brought back the humanity to the royal family. And then how they treated her, and worse, when her son got married to a woman of color,
Yeah.
and how they have treated Meghan Markle to the point where she hightailed it.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's why I think that is one of the reasons why when William and Kate came to the Caribbean, there was no love for them, because we are quite aware of what is going on in the royal family. You know,
Yeah.
it makes the news, so we see what's going on. We see all the struggles. We know that Charles made fun of the fact that she was pregnant and if the baby was going to be a black baby or what. So we picked up the racial undercurrent in the conversation that was happening when when Harry married Meghan. And guess what? Jamaicans love Prince Harry. You know? Prince Harry came here a couple times, and I'm telling you, that is the one them prefer. And then worse, he got married to a woman of color. They love Harry. And then when they see what he has been going through because of his choice, I mean, you know, for those of us who actually were watching it, we were very upset. You understand? So that also came into question. But yeah.
Well, listen. I thank you for joining us and give us some perspective of to what happened in Jamaica. And the truth about it is the same thing, same conversation happening in Grenada. And I'm sure in
Yeah,
our
I know.
community right now.
I have a lot of you'd be surprised as to how many Grenadians are here. We
Yeah.
have a lot of Grenadians here.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. But listen, thank you so much. And
it's
as
my
always,
pleasure.
giving us on the ground view as to what's happening there in Jamaica. We appreciate you
Right.
all the time. Tell the people where they could find you, because you're very
All
popular
right,
at
my
Right Mango.
page is I'm on Facebook, Kamla the Right Mango. I spend most of my time on TikTok now. I like TikTok. I've taken to TikTok. It's the Right Mango, at the Right Mango on TikTok. That's my son
Yes.
in the background. Come out of my shot. Yeah. Yeah. So but on all platforms, the Right Mango. All right.
Nice.
So Facebook and TikTok mostly.
Thank you so much. We'll keep in touch. Thanks
Yes,
again.
take care. All
All
right.
right. Yeah, man. Kamala, always very opinionated and passionate. Yeah, as far as Ireland, yeah, as far as Ireland, everyone is having this conversation right now, guys. Guys, in the week, and actually next week, we plan to have a panel discussion on it and bring in a few lawyers from around the region. St. Vincent and the Grenadines, St. Lucia. We have someone from attorney from Grenada, one from Jamaica. Let's have a regional discussion on the way forward on a referendum and what are the processes that needs to be done, the appetites, and just feeling the temperature on the ground in these Caribbean islands. And because I think the will of the people right now want to at least have this discussion. And I think government should use this opportunity at this juncture to see if that's the will of the people and if they could pull through with it. Bearing in mind, right, that it might be an expensive venture. There might be a lot of changes. The governments of the region have to do everything to really figure out if it makes sense, because it just may not make sense at all for some region. It just may not make sense. It might make more sense staying as it is right now. That is a discussion that the government and the people have to speak about. There need to be consultation by the powers that be and stakeholders and see if that is the will of the people and if it would actually bring economic development to the country or to the people, right? So it's a lot have to be discussed. It's not something that you could just make a decision overnight. A lot have to go into the decision, but I think that the discussion should at least start. At least. Thank you guys for watching. Thanks for being a part of our program. Very educated historical view from Ruggles Ferguson. We thank him for making the time to chat with us. And of course, on the ground, what's happening in Jamaica. We say thank you so much. Guys, don't forget that this coming Sunday, which is the 17th. Yeah, the 17th. The NDC New York chapter cordially invites you to a dinner and dance with the Prime Minister, Honorable Deacon Mitchell. That's going to take place at Glen Terrace. It's 5313 Avenue N. That's in Brooklyn, New York. Limited ticket, guys. Now, we started to promote this just a few days ago, and already they sold out. But they put 200 more tickets. They got a bigger hall. So yesterday, they put 200 tickets more on sale. We started to talk about it yesterday again. They sold out almost half of that. So tickets are very, very limited at this point in time. So if you want to be there on the 17th, Saturday the 17th, get your tickets now. For more information, you can call 347-432-6963 or 347-528-3038. Contact them right now and get your ticket. Tickets are $200, but it's a dinner with the Prime Minister. It will be an amazing event. And also, guys, there will be a town hall meeting. They send the town hall meeting information to me, but I'll post it on the website. There'll be a town hall meeting where everyone gets to come out and ask the question to the Prime Minister here in New York. One caveat, though, I was told that you have to be fully vaccinated. I believe that was one of the caveats that was told to me. But the official information will be posted on our Facebook page. But if you're in New York and you you have some questions for the Prime Minister at the town hall meeting, which will be announced, the location will be announced shortly. Look out for the information, but you have to walk with your fully vaccinated card, right? That's what I was told. Also, guys, happening. Thank you, Eslin. There's also King of Kings. Yeah, Looney Spark and Electrify have this event happening. It's called King of Kings 2, Vincy Mid Grenada, and that's happening at the 178 Newport Street, Brooklyn, New York. All the artists, man, like Woy, see artists, Inspector, Mr. Legs, Worst Ways, Looney Spark and Electrify from Grenada, Squeaky from St. Vincent. We have Kemi, Magical, Marlo, and a host of others. That's Saturday, 24th September. That's the official Miami Carnival send-off. Kings of Kings 2, Brooklyn, New York. On behalf of all our production team here at Ride Along Live, our moderators, Kibbs, Deanne Fraser, and Gail Charles. We say thank you so much. Our senior executive producer, Lois JJ. Join us again tomorrow. We appreciate you guys. Bye-bye.
Grenadian products are now only a mouse click away at GrenadaMarket.com. Nutmeg and guava jams, jellies and syrups, world famous nutmeg pain relief spray, black sage, soursop, lemongrass, and guavande bar. Ordering is simple and friendly. All major credit cards accepted. Safe, secure shopping guaranteed. GrenadaMarket.com ships your product anywhere in the world. So when you can't go to the island, the products off the island can be sent to you. Just log on to www.grenadamarket.com and experience our quick delivery and homely service.
Make this carnival a special one at Spice Isle Jewelry. Get up to 40% off our collection of silver and gold jewelry with purchases above $115. Visit our 2 locations on Grenville Street, St. George's and Spiceland Mall, Grand Anse, and see our fine selection of traditional West Indian bangles, necklaces, earrings, rings, and our unique handmade pieces. Step into Spice Isle Jewelry and shop in air-conditioned comfort with friendly, helpful, and courteous staff. We also pay the most for scrap gold. Our repair service is second to none. Treat yourself or someone special with something special from Spice Isle Jewelry. Serving you since 1986. Call us on telephone number 440-3155 or 440-6648. Sale ends August 31st.
Williams Funeral Service serve you with dignity and compassion as you mourn. Every day, we embark on the journey of life, and one day, the journey will end. It's on that day that you can entrust the celebration of life of your loved ones to David Williams Funeral Service. Call 718-291-3823.
Chicks Export Limited, Toronto, Canada. Shipping barrels and other cargo to Grenada in 3 weeks, including custom clearing and home delivery to anywhere in Grenada. They source, purchase, and ship new and used anything. Call or WhatsApp Eric, aka Greens, on 416-569-9755. That's 416.
Well, it's on the right along, so it's happening here.
Came over here. What does it mean? You know, I grew up in what I guess you call a typical family.
We break all the stories, and that's just a fact. And that's why every